Let's hear from Winston Trollope on some guidelines for prescribed burning for range management, for livestock production and wildlife management in African grasslands and savannas.
You good? Good? Okay.
You all right? And, are you familiar with all the controls?
Hang on, I'm good. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your words of introduction. What I'd like to present to you are guidelines that we've built up through applied research and interaction with land users for African savannas that are used for livestock production and wildlife management. However, I'd like to also acknowledge the other members of the team that assisted with the formulation of these prescribed guidelines. Prescribed burning in African grasslands and savannas, and it's used for numerous reasons as an essential range management practice. And for example, domestic livestock production in the higher rainfall areas of southern Africa, and also our experience in East Africa, it's essential for managing the rangelands to the advantage of the system of land use, namely livestock production, in terms of maintaining the grass and that in a palatable and productive condition. Also for wildlife management, you don't need to be introduced to the wonderful wildlife of Africa. It plays a very important management role in those particular environments. The key factors to consider in a prescribed burning program are listed here. Firstly, the reasons for burning, the condition of the vegetation relative to your reasons for burning in terms of the ecological status of the grass sward as determined by its botanical composition, the basal cover of the sward, the grass fuel load, and then the woody component in terms of its density and phytomass. Then, having gathered all that information and considered it the appropriate fire regime to apply in terms of type, intensity, and seasonal frequency relative to the reasons for burning. And once you've burnt, then before you burn, the pre-management requirements and the post-management requirements. The primary objective of prescribed burning is to develop and maintain, in terms of livestock production and wildlife management, is to maintain the productivity and economic viability of natural rangeland ecosystems. And the secondary reason and objective is to develop and maintain biodiversity and the sustainability of natural ecosystems. The reasons for prescribed burning, there are basically two primary reasons. Firstly, to remove moribund grass material, which is no longer palatable and utilizable by the animals. And secondly, to control the encroachment of undesirable plants, which are to the disadvantage of the domestic and wildlife that are running in a particular area. And these are the primary reasons. So two reasons: remove moribund material, control undesirable plants relative to the animals occurring in the area. Other possible reasons, of course, that have come up is to control animal diseases such as ticks, and we've done some very fascinating work in the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania, where we were able to control ticks with a prescribed burning program. Also to improve the botanical composition of the grass sward by encouraging productive and highly palatable species of plants relative to the requirements of the animals, and also, of course, to promote nutrient cycling. What about the relationship between range condition and prescribed burning? The basic principle involved in applying prescribed burning is that it must be based on range condition. The rangeland must be in a particular condition to justify whether you should burn it or not. And that refers to the condition of the vegetation pertinent to the system of land use, for example, livestock production and wildlife management, where maintaining and promoting forage production and biodiversity and reducing soil erosion are the key requirements. Generally speaking, burning should only be considered when the grass sward is in a climax or subclimax ecological status dominated by decreaser and increaser one grass species, which I'll explain in a moment. The basic reason for this is that burning is an extreme treatment and can degrade range condition if not applied in areas in the incorrect ecological condition. The other prime requirement is that the grass fuel load must be more than 4,000 kilograms per hectare as a general guideline for fire management, and the basic reason for that is that the grass wood is in a moribund and unpalatable condition where the protein content is less than 7%, unsuitable for ruminant animals. In terms of decreaser and increaser species, decreaser species are at the bottom of the table there when you should burn, dominate in situations where the grazing intensity of the rangeland is moderate, and they can decrease if it is underutilized, such as where the grazing intensity is low, or they will and you get increase of one species, and you can increase the grazing intensity and get increase of two species where the grazing is overgrazed. So the actual ecological status of the vegetation, which you can also describe it in successional terms, is appropriate to decide whether you should burn or not. Rangelands in conditions suitable for prescribed burning are illustrated in these two slides here. On the left-hand side is a decreaser dominant sward, which if it exceeds 4,000 kilograms, you'll consider burning it. And in the right-hand slide is an increase of one dominant sward where there are climax grass species, and you'd like to reverse the succession back to the decreaser stage, and you can do that with prescribed burning. So these are the two situations that you consider using fire to manage that rangeland. However, if the condition is in a degraded pioneer condition, dominated by increase of two species, then as a general guideline, put your matches away so that you can allow the vegetation to develop to a more productive and ecologically higher ecological status. Now, we have developed simple practical techniques for assessing range condition and the ecological status of the grass sward, and these are illustrated here. One of the problems with a lot of the botanical surveys is that they're so complicated and time-consuming that very few people want to do it, and we've developed simple ones, rapid ones, which can give you the answer in a short period of time. The fire regime is important, and it must be related to the reasons for burning. And this refers to the recommended type of fire that you should use, the intensity, the season, and the frequency of burning relative to the system of land use and the reasons for burning. In terms of type, we recommend that you use head fires when burning because this causes least damage to the grass sward, and it can cause maximum damage to trees and shrubs if you are in situations where bush encroachment is a problem. Now, referring to fire intensity, burning to remove moribund grass material when the fuel loads are more than 4,000 kilograms per hectare, one will use low intensity fires, and this can be achieved when the grass curing is greater than 80%, so it's fairly fully cured. The air temperature is less than 20 degrees, relative humidity above 50%. It's a coolish situation. Wind speed less than 12 kilometers per hour, and the FDI somewhere in the green category, burning on a green day. And this is what it looks like: a low intensity fire to remove moribund material. Fire intensity to control undesirable plants such as trees and shrubs, bush encroachment, you need a high intensity fire, and the major difference there is that you apply it where the air temperatures are 30 degrees Celsius and above, and the relative humidity less than 30%, so fairly extreme conditions, but still relatively controllable, and the wind speed less than 12 kilometers per hour. So you're burning with an FDI of orange and upper yellow to be able to achieve those objectives. And this is what a high-intensity looks like, where the intensity can be more than 2,000 kilojoules per second per meter or kilowatts per meter. Season of burn when the grass is dormant, in winter and early spring. Burning to remove moribund grass material, burn on a cool day or after rain in spring to achieve a cool fire. Burning to control encroaching plants, burn dry before rain in late winter to be able to achieve the high-intensity fire. Frequency of burning to remove moribund grass material. Grass sward becomes moribund when it's more than 4,000 kilograms, so you should burn whenever it exceeds that particular thing. And so that gives you an idea of how frequent you should burn. Burning to control undesirable plants cannot be prescribed in any general terms and all depends upon the encroaching plants. The post-burn management, burning to remove moribund material, the general guideline is that the animals can be introduced to graze as soon as possible with domestic livestock systems. In wildlife systems, one can avoid damaging continuous grazing after burning by burning consecutive adjacent areas at 6 to 8 week intervals, thereby attracting wildlife to new areas of palatable growth. Gracias, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that fascinating talk. I think that we have a couple of minutes if we have any questions from the audience.
Thank you.
If not, looks like we've done a very thorough job of explaining. Thank you very much again.
Thanks for your answer. Thank you.